Well, we're going to break things up a little bit, not with a panel, but with a flash talk from Vishal Kumar, who's a CEO of Waste Warrior Society, where he works to solve the waste management crisis in the Indian Himalayan region. So when we talk about health, waste management is critical for both climate and health. So I'll give the stage over to you, Vishal.
Just have to speak loud, man.
Okay.
That works.
Why reimagining waste management is critical for climate and health. There are three words that we need to understand here: waste, climate, and health. When we think about health, we typically think about health of maybe vulnerable women or poor children. But what about the health of all species on this planet, from the smallest to the largest? These voiceless species are the most vulnerable to the impacts of climate change. And who is representing them at COP28 or any of the climate negotiations that happen across the world? Second, climate. When we think about climate, we typically think about carbon emissions. But let us imagine what happens if we magically solve carbon emissions. The problem of carbon. Is the planet going to be livable, habitable for generations to come? We need to think beyond just carbon and look at the complex intelligence of nature with all its abundant natural resources: air, water, soil, and biodiversity. Waste. When we think about waste, we typically think about trash that we throw in the bin. But all resources and energy that we consume more than what we need is waste that needs to be managed. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Vishal, and I'm the CEO at Waste Warriors Society. We're solving the waste crisis in the Indian Himalayan region. When we think about plastics, we generally think about maybe a poly bag in a supermarket, but this magic material, which is derived from fossil fuels, can be found now from the highest point on land to the deepest point in sea. Everywhere we've cared to look, be it our rivers, our oceans, birds or fishes, bottled water or branded salt, microplastics can be found everywhere, including inside the human body. The human blood, human brain, human poop, anywhere we think, including something as sacrosanct as and pure as mother's breast milk. What are we doing? Where are we headed as a species? In just 50 years of plastics being around commercially, compared to millions of years of evolution, we have something like a hormonal disruptor in a placenta of an unborn child. For carbon, we have a graph, the Keeling curve, which we've been measuring since pre-industrial times. We've been talking so much about carbon, we understand what the planetary limits are and what its impact are going to be on the environment. But do we know or understand any graph that measures the amount of plastics in all its diverse shapes and forms in our natural resources, air, water, and soil? And do we know what the limits are? Do we know if you've already crossed those thresholds? This is a problem each and every one of us contributes to, and therefore we all need to care. Now let us imagine we are successful in stopping burning of all fossil fuel for energy, which is why we're all here, the energy transition. But what happens is, what could be some potential unintended negative consequences of that? And my biggest fear is that this natural resource is going to be transformed into so many forms that are going to be unrecognizable and penetrate every single industry we can imagine. And this is already happening. Almost every piece of textile today is made of plastics, which is derived from fossil fuel. Every drop of paint in the world is derived from plastics. Every industry we can think of, from toys to cosmetics to electronics to food packaging, is now inundated with plastics. Now, where is all of this going to end up? And who is going to bear the impact of all of this? In fact, some of these materials are designed for the dump. Complete disregard to end-of-life management of these materials. In the Indian Himalayan region, where I work, 1 truck of waste is dumped every 5 minutes in the open. And when waste is dumped in these eco-sensitive areas, it impacts the health of all species that are there in the wild. When waste is dumped, it also ends up in our rivers and water streams and eventually ends up in our oceans. Now, what is the point of spending billions of dollars trying to clean up the oceans when every minute we're throwing waste in our rivers from land? When waste is burnt, it ends up releasing dioxins and furans, which are some of the most carcinogenic chemicals known to scientists. And that's the only way mountain communities know to manage their waste. It also releases black carbon, which deposits on snow and leads to faster melting of ice caps. The Himalayas are young mountains, also known as the third pole of the world. Unfortunately, they are warming much faster than the global average, and mountain communities are one of the most vulnerable to the impacts of climate change. We at Waste Warriors have taken up this battle to solve the waste management crisis in this specific region. 200 warriors and more fight this war every single day with their blood, sweat, and tears, giving it our all to solve this particular problem. Yet, this is not enough. The problem is growing much faster than the scale of solutions. We need radical collaboration. We need to reimagine how we consume things. We need to change the narrative of climate change. We need to act fast, and we need to act now. But first, we must understand the root cause of the problem in all its holistic dimensions. We must respect the laws of nature and stay true to our moral compass. I've always believed that what's good for us is good for the environment because we are one with nature. Now, will you all reimagine why waste management is critical for climate and health and join us in this war against waste? Thank you. And waste warriors always carry all their trash back to where they come from. So we take this back to India every time we travel. Thank you.
Vishal.